Hello, everyone. This is Jessie from the Glencoe Public Library, and I am here today with a very special edition of our Self-Care Sunday program. As you know, today is not a Sunday, it is a Tuesday, and specifically, it is Election Day in the United States. Election day can be a stressful day for many of us. Maybe you've been waiting in long lines at the polls. Maybe you already voted, or maybe you're too young to vote, and you're just anxious for the results to come in. And so I am here today to give you some simple, soothing self-care activities that you can do to, be a little more calm, a little more grounded today. We have actually put together a whole playlist, including all of our self-care Sunday videos so far, as well as some different types of videos from other sources, yoga videos, meditation, breathing, some videos that are just kind of funny and silly and enjoyable to watch. Kind of a buffet of options available to you to check out. So I do encourage you to take a look at that playlist, see if there's anything on there that interests you. But I'm very excited to get started with the activities that we are doing today. So let's get to it. So the first of our activities today is actually a couple of activities that I am putting under the header of fancy hot beverages. In the wintertime, there is nothing more comforting or more wonderful, in my opinion, than a nice hot drink. And if you live in the Chicago area like I do, winter's pretty much already here. We've already had a little bit of snow, and so these drinks are just a great way to treat yourself on a cold day. So let's get started with our first one. So the first thing I'm going to teach you how to make is your own hot chocolate mix. Of course, you can buy hot chocolate mix from the store, and if you're thinking making my own hot chocolate mix seems like too many steps, I would rather just make hot chocolate that I bought from the store. That is totally fine, no shade, you do you. But if you want to be a little bit more involved in your hot chocolate making, it's really simple. It just has a few ingredients. So we are going to start with, of course, some cocoa powder. This is unsweetened. So we are going to need 2 cups of the cocoa powder. I'm using a half cup to measure it out because it fits in my container better. Obviously, this is the main ingredient of our hot chocolate mix. And one thing that's nice about this recipe is it's very simple in terms of ingredients. A lot of pre-made hot chocolate mixes come with a lot of preservatives and stuff, and if you're not about that life, this is a great option because you know exactly what's going into it because you made it yourself. So our next ingredient here is going to be sugar. We're going to need 1.5 cups. So I'll go ahead and start measuring that. So the recipe that I'm using right now and the one that is in the packet for this week calls for something called turbino sugar, which is that kind of sugar that's like, I don't know, one of the brand names is Sugar in the Raw. You don't have to use that kind of sugar. You can use whatever kind of sugar you have at home. I mean, obviously you want to use granulated sugar and not like powdered sugar or something crazy, but I mean you can. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't know how it's going to turn out. So if you do put in some powdered sugar or some brown sugar or something, let me know because I'm curious how that will turn out for you. So we've just got 2 ingredients left, and they are both actually optional. So if you want to call it a day here and say, I'm going to rock on with my cocoa powder and sugar mix, then rock on with your cocoa powder and sugar mix. But we can also add a teaspoon of salt just for a little contrast. I have a salt grinder, so I'm just gonna guesstimate the amount of salt instead of trying to measure it because measuring it is kind of a pain. But it is technically supposed to be 1 teaspoon if you are going to measure. So last we have 3 tablespoons of cinnamon. In our handout for this week, I made sure to spell out teaspoon and tablespoon every time because I think the abbreviations are way too similar. It's very easy to get confused. Um, Again, this is optional if you want more cinnamon than this, less cinnamon than this. If you want no cinnamon at all, you do you. I personally love cinnamon, so I'm going to go ahead and add the full amount. So you're going to start mixing at this point all your ingredients together. There are some hot chocolate recipes that will have you add like powdered milk or non-dairy creamer or something like that. That way, even if you mix it with water, you still get that milky taste, milky texture. Me, I'm lactose intolerant, so I went ahead and picked a recipe that doesn't have any dairy in it, so that I can add my oat milk or my soy milk or whatever I decide to add to the hot chocolate when the time comes. So once you have your mixture at a nice, smooth, consistent texture here, you are all done. It is that simple. And when it comes time to make some actual hot chocolate, you'll take what the recipe calls a heaping tablespoon of the mix and add that to a mug of hot milk, any milk of your choice. Stir that up and you have got a delicious cup of hot chocolate. In our packet for this week, we have a list of all kinds of things you can add to your hot chocolate to make it extra yummy. A couple of my favorites, sometimes I will heat my milk and hot chocolate mix over the stove and add like a spoonful of Nutella to that and let the Nutella melt into the hot chocolate, and that's really yummy. Another one of my favorites is what's called Mexican hot chocolate, which is you add cinnamon and then just a little sprinkle of either chili powder or cayenne. So like with this recipe, I already have cinnamon in my mix. All I would need is to add that little bit of spice, and then I would have some yummy Mexican hot chocolate. But feel free to add whatever makes you happy. Maybe you like a traditional mini marshmallow. Maybe you're going to add some whipped cream and sprinkles on there. It's totally up to you. I also forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, I mixed my hot chocolate in a large Tupperware, so I can just go ahead and pop the lid on, and now I have it in a storage container. Obviously, you can mix it in a bowl and then transfer it to something else, but this is just kind of a neat, tidy little trick to make your life a little bit easier. Okay, so our next drink is the simplest of the three. If you are just not feeling up to doing a lot of work to put together a beverage, but you still want to have something a little bit special, maybe you've had a long day or whatever, this is a great option for that. So I have here some hot apple cider. I made mine using my Keurig, but you could also buy packets of hot apple cider mix at the grocery store and just mix that with some hot water and get the same result. So we've got our pre-made, pre-mixed hot apple cider, but we want to make it a little bit more special, and so we're going to add a couple things. The first is some cinnamon. Now in the packet that we have for this week, there's just some specific measurements for these, but as you can tell, I am clearly just eyeballing it, and I'm also going to add some maple syrup into there, and just stir that in, and that makes for a very delicious hot apple cider. If you are feeling up to something a little fancier, you can put your apple cider mix and water over the stove, and that will make the rest of the house smell really, really yummy. So there are a whole bunch of different ways that you can punch up some hot apple cider, make it a little bit fancier. We have many suggestions in the packet. One that my friend Emily suggested to me. Emily is a wonderful cook and makes lots of delicious food and drinks. She said she likes to make hers over the stove, her apple cider, and put in whole cranberries and some tart apple slices and a whole stick of cinnamon, that's hard to say, and just let that simmer for a while it heats up, and then strain it and drink it, and that sounds delicious to me. Again, it's a little more involved. It has some things that you may or may not have around the house. I know I don't have any whole cranberries sitting around, But if you do, that sounds like a great option as well. So that's it on hot apple cider. I am going to go ahead and enjoy this delicious drink before moving on to our next segment. All right, so this last beverage we're going to learn how to make today is a chai latte. Now, this recipe contains black tea, which also contains caffeine. So maybe if you're not into black tea or you're not into caffeine, you can leave that out. That is optional, but I'm gonna go ahead and make it with the black tea because I like black tea. So the very first thing we're gonna do here is we are gonna measure out 2 cups of any kind of milk. The original recipe calls for almond milk. You can use just regular dairy milk or honestly whatever. I am going to be using oat milk because that's what I have in my house. So here we go, 2 cups of that. We're going to pour it into this nice medium-sized saucepan I have here. Could probably use a small one too, but this is what I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and light the stove here. And now we're going to wait for this to start to bubble. So we want it like boiling, but not super boiling, if that makes sense. All right, so I let mine get a little frothier than I recommended, but that's cool. I think it will still be fine. What I'm gonna do now is go ahead and turn off the heat. And then here is the optional step. I'm gonna add 2 black tea bags in there. I'm gonna grab a wooden spoon so they can really steep in there, which is what we want them to do. Okay. And then the instructions say to leave that for 3 to 5 minutes. These tea bags are pretty strong, so I'm gonna just do 3. Okay, so once your tea has steeped, or maybe you just skipped this step and you're already ready for the next one, that's cool. I'm gonna take my tea bags out. Look at that lovely color. I love that color. So next what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add spices and a little bit of sweetener. So for our spices, we're gonna use 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, or to taste. I personally like a lot of cinnamon, so I'm gonna do like a heaping spoonful here. And then, let's see, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. And any of these amounts of spices can be adjusted. If there's something you don't like, you can just leave it out. If there's something you want more of, like I'm all about the cinnamon, you can add some more. It's all about what makes you happy. That's what self-care is all about. So the next thing we need is 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cloves. I don't use cloves a lot, but I have ground cloves in my house for some reason. Honestly, I think I bought them so I could make my own pumpkin spice, which is surprisingly easy. Maybe I'll throw in a make your own pumpkin spice recipe into our packet as well. Okay, so there's all of the spices, and then for sweetener, the recipe gives you the option to use any sweetener, so you could use sugar, you could use honey, artificial sweetener like Splenda, whatever you've got, but I've got maple syrup here, and that is what the recipe recommends. And I love maple syrup in a hot drink, so we're gonna go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of our sweetener here, in my case maple syrup. And then to put it all together, we're gonna put the heat on the stove back on, and we'll just whisk this a little bit to kind of blend all those ingredients together so we're drinking one smooth, creamy, delicious beverage and not one with like lumps in it, because nobody likes lumps in their beverage. I mean, let's be real. Pieces of fruit in your beverage can be nice sometimes, like we talked about the infused cranberry apple cider thing earlier. Like that can be good, but I just feel like lumps of things, just generally undesirable in your beverage. Okay, so this is looking pretty frothy, pretty smooth. You can drink this right away, or you can put it in an airtight container
whatever that means. I'm guessing just something with a lid, probably. And store it for later, and then you can drink it either cold or reheat it on the stove for a tasty hot chai latte. And that is all it takes to make yourself a chai latte, friends.
So, for our next activity, we are going to be making our very own homemade Play-Doh. Now, you might be thinking, Play-Doh, what am I, 5? And two things about that. One, doing stuff that we did when we were 5 can be really fun sometimes. 5-year-olds have the right idea about some things. Take naps, for example, and coloring. We did coloring in our very first self-care Sunday video. So, don't knock what the 5-year-olds are doing. So the other thing that's really great about Play-Doh, and the reason I chose it as an activity for today, is it works really well as a fidget toy. If you're not familiar with fidget toys, they're something that you can hold in your hand during a meeting or in a classroom and just kind of fidget with and help get that excess energy out so that you can focus a little bit better. And so Play-Doh is great for that. You can smush it, you can make it into all kinds of shapes. I know I personally like to have something to fidget with during my Zoom classes, and it's super helpful to me. So, Play-Doh is a great way to do that. It's a great sensory thing, it's a great fidget thing. So, the recipe for this is in the packet. I found a recipe that doesn't have cream of tartar. A lot of homemade Play-Doh recipes have something in them called cream of tartar, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really know what that is. And I don't have it in my house. So this recipe does not have that ingredient. Instead, it's got lemon juice. So I have here some artificial lemon juice or maybe just pre-squeezed lemon juice. I don't know exactly what it is. I just know that I used to put it on fish sticks as a kid. You can also just use juice from an actual lemon. Whatever you have is great. So we have this weird measurement for the water. It's 3/4 of a cup minus 3 tablespoons. Um, for me, that comes out to about 2/3 of a cup. So I'm not sure why it's not just 2/3 of a cup, but whatever. So you'll want to go ahead and measure out 3 tablespoons of your lemon juice here and just add that into the water and give it a little bit of a stir. So the instructions say to mix this in a glass microwavable bowl, and I was like, I don't have that, but I do have a glass measuring cup. So I just went ahead and measured the water in the same container that I am going to mix and heat it up in. So next I'm going to microwave this lemon water for 3 minutes. Alright, so as your lemon water is in the microwave, getting nice and toasty, we are going to prepare our dry ingredients, as it were. So first we're going to need a cup of flour. So I'll go ahead and add that flour into my nice big mixing bowl here. You're also going to need a 1/4 cup of salt, which I went ahead and measured off screen because, as I mentioned, I have a salt grinder, and as I've just learned, it takes a while to grind a whole 1/4 cup of salt. So if you have just a regular salt shaker at home, I highly recommend using that instead. Next, we're going to add a tablespoon of cooking oil. I have, let's see here, Crisco vegetable oil, but I imagine any kind of cooking oil will do since the recipe is not specific. If you have olive oil or coconut oil or something like that, that's, I assume, totally fine. So if you have any kind of food coloring, you'll add it to the hot lemon water when it comes out of the microwave. Just a couple drops will probably do. I personally don't have any food coloring at home, so I'm just going to leave it its natural color. Whatever you want to do is great. We'll keep mixing here. Yeah, you could do patriotic colors maybe for today, some red, white, and blue. I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out, but I suspect it will be close to white. Or just whatever color catches your fancy, or you can just leave it plain like me. So yeah, if you do have some food coloring you want to add in to your hot lemon water, you can go ahead and do that. And then we're going to slowly pour the hot lemon water into the dry ingredients bowl. Here we go. And once that's in there, we're just gonna mix it. Try and get it at a nice, consistent, Play-Doh-y kind of texture here. So you can use your hands to mix it, but just be careful because obviously the lemon water is still super hot and you don't want to burn yourself. Speaking as someone who frequently burns her mouth on hot pizza and hot drinks because I am too impatient to wait for them to cool down, don't do that. It's not great, but you know, wooden spoon is great. And then once it cools off a little bit here, I think I'll probably use my hands because that will get me a little better consistency here. Mine is not quite clumping up here the way I want it to, so yeah, I think definitely gonna use my hands to try and knead it kind of like dough. The recipe recommends possibly putting this down on a counter for this, and we're just gonna kind of smoosh it all into one nice big ball here. That's how we want it. The instructions say that it might be sticky until it cools down all the way, and it is in fact a little bit sticky here. I haven't even finished making this Play-Doh yet, and I am already having a lot of fun just playing with it. I want to like rip it off into smaller chunks and squish it flat on the counter and things like that. It's not quite turning out white like I predicted. It's sort of, I don't know, a light beige color, but I think if you were going for a red, white, and blue color scheme, you could still count this as your white. And the nice thing about this recipe too is it's pretty small batches, so you can make multiple colors pretty quickly and easily if you would like to. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in this plastic jar I got from a vending machine. Ta-da! Any kind of jar with a lid will do. And yeah, now I have my very own Play-Doh. It's pretty quick, it's pretty easy, it's a little bit messy. If you like to do activities that you can get a little bit messy, this is a good choice for that. And so yeah, super fun. So our last activity together today is going to be a little DIY manicure. Now, we have this perception as a society, as a culture, that manicures and pedicures are only for girls and women and feminine presenting people, but I am here today to tell you that absolutely anyone of any gender can do a homemade manicure. You can choose a color that makes you happy and put that on, or you can just use a clear top coat or don't put on any polish at all. It's totally up to you. I know a lot of folks who typically get their nails professionally done, who get manicures and pedicures regularly, are not able to do so because of COVID, or not able to do so as often. So maybe you're missing that, or maybe you're like me and you don't normally get mani-pedis. That's sort of a special occasional treat. But regardless, this is a great skill set to have. It's a great way to, just take a moment to take a break and pamper your hands a little bit, because our hands do so much throughout the day. Um, so much of what we do involves our hands, and so taking a little time out just to pamper the hands is a great thing to do. So let's go ahead and get started here. The first step of the instructions, which I have loosely adapted from Oprah Winfrey's website, is to trim and shape the nails. And if you're like me, you're like, what the heck does trim and shape the nails mean? I mean, trim the nails, obviously, cut them short with a pair of clippers, but to file your nails, you're going to need a nail file of some sort. You can easily find a nail file at a drugstore. Maybe you have one lying around the house, maybe you don't, and if you don't worry about it. You can just skip this step if you'd rather. I cut my nails recently, so I'm going to go ahead and go straight to filing. I haven't filed my nails in a while because I haven't painted my nails in a while, so I'm very excited to do this today. So if you've never used a nail file before, here, let me try to get this on camera. With the nail file, what you're doing is essentially smoothing out the ragged edges of your nail, kind of making it into a nice shape. There's a lot of different shapes that people make their nails into. For me, I just like a nice round edge. As you can see, I also keep my nails pretty short, and that is because I am a lifelong violinist. And when you play the violin, you want to have nice short nails to be able to do that. The reason violinists keep their nails short and other string players is because you have to be able to put your finger flat on the string without the nail getting in the way, kind of like that. Anyway, I've just always been in the habit of keeping my nails pretty short. For you, maybe not the case. Maybe you like to keep your nails a little bit longer. Maybe as part of treating yourself today, you want to look up some different nail shapes and maybe make your nails a little different shape than you usually do, or maybe you want to keep things the same. Totally up to you. Some people have kind of pointier nails, some people have rounder ones, some people do like a square shape. Totally up to you what you want to do here. But yeah, using a nail file, it's very simple. It's just this back and forth motion. If you've ever seen like a bored teenage girl in a movie or a TV show, it's pretty much exactly like that. We're going to want to do this step with dry nails. According to the Oprah article, if you do it with wet nails, it can potentially cause damage to the nail, so that's why we're doing it here at the beginning of the process before we use these bowls of water that are on screen a little bit later. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the shape of my nails here. They're, like I said, pretty short, and I like them pretty round, so it does not take me too long to do this. It might take you a little longer, just totally depends. If you have a nail file with a buffer part, you can buff the nail like this. It just makes that top part a little bit shinier and smoother. My nail file does not have a buff part, so I will go ahead and skip that step. So next is the most chill part of our manicure, which is going to be soaking the nails in warm soapy water for about 5 minutes. I just used about a pump of hand soap in each of these little mixing bowls here. And you can do this one of two ways. You can either do both hands at once, or you can just do one hand at a time if you'd rather have the other hand free to scroll through your phone or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and do both hands at once, and we'll put in a little time skip here so that you don't have to watch me just soak my nails for 5 minutes. So here we go. So after you have soaked your nails for 5 minutes, we are going to go ahead and put some olive oil on our cuticles. Now, I have never done this before, but I'm going to use a cotton ball. That seems like the least messy way of doing this. In a pinch, I have been known to also use a wadded up piece of toilet paper or tissue as kind of an impromptu cotton ball if you don't have any cotton balls around. I bet a Q-tip would work too. So you can use olive oil or any kind of natural oil here, avocado, coconut, whatever you have. And your cuticle, by the way, is the little bit of skin that's the bottom of your nail. I don't know if you can see on camera, but that's what that is. The oil is just to moisturize that skin. We don't want to remove the cuticle skin because we do need it to help keep our nails healthy, keep them from getting infected. but we want to push them back a little bit just to get that nice aesthetic look. So there are a lot of tools out there. Again, you can find a lot of them at drugstores that people use to push back their cuticles. I don't have any of those. I am just going to use this washcloth. So you just want to be nice and gentle here. You don't want to, you know, rip the skin or cause any bleeding or anything. This washcloth is actually working surprisingly well. Again, if you have any kind of tool that is specifically designed for pushing back cuticles, feel free to go ahead and use it. I feel like if that's the case, you may or may not even need my instructions. You're probably like, I'm a pro at this, Jessie. This is all old news to me. Uh, but yeah, just any old clean washcloth will also work for this purpose. Just priming the nails here uh, to get ready for some polish here in a few minutes. I was a little worried I was going to end up having to wipe off some excess olive oil, but it seems like it's absorbing into the skin pretty well. Um, so yeah, my nails are looking pretty nice here. I am pretty pleased with them. Nicely shaped, nice pushed back cuticles. So yeah, next steps here. If you have any hangnails, which are, I'm sure you know what a hangnail is, but those little tags of skin next to your nails that are hanging off, they're kind of painful. You can go ahead and remove those with a pair of nail clippers at this point in the process. And if you have a base coat, if that's something that you own, you'll go ahead and put that on first before the rest of the polish. A pro tip that I learned from that Oprah article I mentioned is to start painting your nails with your, start by painting your dominant hand, whichever that one might be, and using your non-dominant hand to paint first. That way you're not setting too high of a standard by painting with your dominant hand, and they turn out a little more even, a little less messy. Of course, things might get a little messy, a little sloppy, and that's totally fine. We are not here striving for perfection. We are here to have fun and relax. Uh, so if you do put on that base coat, obviously you'll have to wait for that to dry before going ahead and putting on the color. I do not have a base coat, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the color. Um, but first, I'm going to go grab some paper towels. So just in a moment. And through the magic of technology, I am instantly back. So I've got a double layer of paper towels here. This is going to be helpful for several reasons. Primarily to keep the nail polish off of whatever surface you're painting on, but it's also helpful for cleaning up when things get a little bit messy, when you make mistakes, which I am sure I am going to do. So I will show you kind of how I clean that up using the paper towel. I am going to use a red polish today because it's fall and I always like to have a nice fall red if I can. So I'll go ahead and shake that up. And two tips here that I learned from the Oprah article. One is to keep your hand on a flat surface while you're painting your nails. That way your nails aren't moving around as much, your fingers aren't wobbling, they're just nice and solid and steady. It also recommended painting starting at your pinky and going to your thumb. There was a reason for that, and now I don't remember it. But that is actually the opposite of how I usually paint my nails. I'm going to go ahead and give that other way a try today. And I'm going to follow my own advice and start painting with my left hand. So I've only just started and I have already gotten some red paint on my thumb here. So I will go ahead and just kind of roll that against the paper towel here, and it'll take off that excess while it's still wet. So that's a nice way to kind of clean and tidy your nails as you go. And I'm realizing now that I am not following my own advice here. I'm painting my thumb mid-air. instead of putting it on a flat surface. We're supposed to leave our hand on a flat surface, everybody, for smoothness and consistency in the nails. So depending on the color that you're using and the color that you want, one coat of paint might be enough, or you might want to do a double coat, paint one layer, wait for it to dry, and then paint a second layer on top to get a darker color. I am liking how this red is looking just in the single coat here, but I've definitely done double coats of red before to get like a nice deep rich red, good for Halloween maybe. Halloween will be over by the time you all see this, but you know, maybe Halloween next year you want some nice blood red nails, or maybe just any time of year. Up to you. So I'm realizing now that I said to start from your pinky nail and then started from my thumbnail out of habit. So this hand will start from the pinky nail and see how that goes for us. But one thing I know from experience that is nice about these DIY nail polish jobs is even the nail polish that you get on your skin is going to wash off a lot faster than the nail polish on your nails. So don't worry if you get some on your skin that's kind of hard to wipe off with the towel, because after a couple of good hand washings, that'll just come off and you'll have a nice, neat paint job. And I know we're all washing our hands a lot these days, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. The other thing to remember is that no one besides you is really going to see these nails super close up, so any minor imperfections, I encourage you to just let them go, even major imperfections, because this is not about, you know, being a nail artist, having perfect nails. It's about taking some time to relax and take care of yourself and do something that brings you joy. So if your nails look terrible but they bring you joy, then that's all that matters. I know having painted nails usually brings me joy because I see my hands throughout the day and I see the lovely color on them and it makes me happy. So now comes probably the most boring part of this process, which is just sitting and waiting for the polish to dry for about 5 to 10 minutes. You can use this time maybe to do a little mindfulness, a little breathing exercise, watch some YouTube videos, or maybe just stare into space. So once again, through the magic of technology, here we are. I've got some nice dry red nails, and I'm going to do the penultimate step here, which is putting on a nice clear top coat. Maybe putting on clear polish is all that you're doing. That's your only step for polish, and that's cool. And what's nice about clear polish is that putting it on top of your nails not only is going to make them look a little bit shinier, but it's also going to make sure that that manicure lasts a little bit longer, doesn't chip quite as fast. And I mean, everybody wants their manicure to last as long as possible, generally, and especially if you're me and you don't do this very often, you know, you really want to extend the experience, have as long as possible with your lovely colorful nails before you have to take that polish off and either paint them again or just have unpainted nails for a while. Okay, so the last step of this process, which I am not going to show on camera because it has to take place after the clear coat dries, and also I think most people know how to do it. Oh, and here's an appearance from my cat Reggie. Hello, Reggie. But once your clear coat dries, you'll want to go ahead and moisturize, put some lotion on your hands. Maybe you have like a special lotion that you only use occasionally, or maybe it's just an everyday moisturizer, and that's fine. But do go ahead and moisturize your hands. It's so important to keep your skin from getting too dry, especially in these winter months. So that is it for our special Election Day edition of Self Care Sunday. I hope you enjoyed it. Um, keep doing your self care, and everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy.